You know, I once double-checked the exact location of the supposed last resting place of the Cybermen. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about not one, but two stories today, as we've got The Fate of Krelos by Nicholas Briggs, and we've also got Return to Telos, also by Nicholas Briggs. When these stories were written, they're two parts each, and but they're supposed to be listened as like one big 4-part adventure, with this story leading directly into this story, and they both intertwine with each other. And with these Big Finish official CD covers, I've made my own DVD cover. That's the front of it. I really liked the cover of Return to Telos, but the pictures with the backgrounds kind of spoils the fact that Jamie's in it. So in my one, I've actually edited them out, and so that's really cool. That's the spine, if anyone's interested, and that's the background that details both stories. And it's really cool, and if anyone wants to look on the inside, there you go. So it's basically like a 2-part adventure. When these stories were advertised, it was mainly, the main appeal was for Leela to meet the Cybermen, my favourite companion meeting my favourite Doctor Who monster. And as well, it will have a lot of connections with the previous Doctor Who televised story, The Tomb of the Cybermen. And also in Return to Telos, Fraser Hines returns as Jamie McCrinnan and also plays the second Doctor, for which he's done impressions for numerous times on Big Finish. But not a lot of people know this, but the guy who plays Peter Hayden in Tomb of the Cybermen, what's his name? Bernard Hawley. He also returns in a very minor role. So that's really cool. But let's go to The Fate of Krelos. Now, a lot of people I've heard don't like this 2-part set like this because it feels like you don't really need that. You just need this one. And when I first listened to it, I did have that sort of issue as well. This story just feels like build up for the next story. Nothing really, like we don't even know the villain in this one until this one. But the more I listen to this and the more I listen to the documentary at the end of the story, I've actually gained a little bit of appreciation for it. It's a story in which we don't usually see, as Nicholas Briggs puts it. A lot of people think, why would anybody work with a Doctor if they are constantly under threat, if they never have a relaxing time? And Nicholas Briggs' theory is that it's not always like that. We only just see the adventure ones because it's our interests. I mean, a Doctor Who episode would be really boring if they didn't encounter any dangers. They just had a nice holiday. So this story was kind of trying to represent that, as the majority of the story is about the Doctor trying to get Leela to go fishing. That's a true story. They go to Krelos because the Doctor has learned about these magnificent lakes that are on top of the mountain. Only the Doctor's accidentally landed in the bottom of it. And whilst they're there in the TARDIS, the Doctor's looking around, and he hears a familiar hum, and Leela and the Doctor find the original TARDIS design used by the second Doctor. Apparently it's been into storage and there's a lot of dust in it. And whilst there, Leela finds something part of a kilt, and the Doctor reminisces about Jamie. And I really love this scene because if it was any other Fourth Doctor adventure, this is probably very common now in New Who. But we get a scene, a very heartwarming moment in which the Doctor reflects on his time with Jamie, and Leela has some questions about him and how he was a fierce warrior and stuff. And that's really a very sweet moment. And the Doctor's like he was one of my best friends and stuff. And I just really props to that scene. So the Doctor and Leela try and go fishing. However, they are getting interrupted by a giant robot who had fell over down the mountain. But it turns out it wasn't actually a robot. It is a man's programmed brain into a machine, so he can move around when his body is really frail. And you really get, and this character is he's supposed to be one of the side characters you're supposed to care about and stuff, but I wasn't really digging him. I mean, we get some scenes in which his human body is talking to his maid, and something about it just doesn't click. Nicholas Briggs has two types of storytelling. He either has complicated characters with simple plots, or he has simple characters with complicated plots. And this one is his simple characters and complicated plot, in a way. The characters here are a bit, I wouldn't say one-dimensional. He does have an effort of trying to give them a bit more personality, like the maid doesn't like all his technology, and the man, he likes retro stuff, so he's made this really high-tech machine, but made it designed so it looks like it's old-fashioned, and that's really cool. But you never get really detached to them, and when something happens to them later on in the story, you kind of shrug it off, really. But anyway, during all this, K9 seems to be infected by something. He's talking to himself, he starts stuttering, and he seems to be in some sort of pain as the Doctor asks him to put the TARDIS back to its original design, to which K9 doesn't. And also as this, K9 alerts the Doctor of some sort of danger, and the Doctor goes back into the TARDIS and doesn't know what's working with K9. And so when the Doctor, what he does is he kind of hovers the TARDIS for a bit and lands back in the exact same spot. However, when the Doctor goes back to go to the fishing trip, he sees that the city that the mountain was overseeing has been almost completely destroyed. And he meets the robot again, and the robot doesn't seem to be working properly. It seems to just been spouting gibberish. And so the Doctor goes down to the hills and meets the human version, only for him to be spouting a bit of rubbish. And the headset that connects it to the robot seems to be attacking the Doctor and Leela. And the Doctor and Leela have to escape to the TARDIS as there's nothing they could do. The city's already destroyed and there's nothing they could do. And so they go into the TARDIS, and K9 says that they are flying to a certain location. And when the Doctor's like, stop it, K9 says no. Not negative like K9 normally says, but no. K9 has new masters. I wonder who it could be. I wonder. And so that's the fate of Krelos. Overall, it's a story that's mainly just there to build up, and you might consider this a really forgettable story, but I actually do kind of like it. It's one of those stories that we wouldn't have had seen if it wasn't for the fact that this is a build-up to another story. It shows the Doctor in a much more lighter tone. It shows the Doctor and Leela just taking a breath for a moment, and there's a lot of sweet moments between the Fourth Doctor and Leela, which I've kind of brushed over because this is a vlog series, it's not a well-detailed review. I wish I was talented enough to give you a detailed review, but this is just my basic opinion. So yeah, I actually enjoyed Fate of Krelos. It's really simple, really really easy to follow. And then you've got the return to Telos. And the Doctor states right at the start that K9 is leading them to Telos, but not just any scene in Telos, but at the original moment of the Doctor's original revival. So this story actually takes place in terms of the universe's continuity at the exact same time as Tomb of the Cybermen, which I found really strange because despite the story called Return to the Telos, there's hardly any scenes on Telos, as when the Doctor lands on Telos, he quickly goes back to Krelos, as the Doctor realises that originally K9, Leela and the Doctor went before going on to Telos. The Doctor, Leela's like, we need to go back in time and save the man and the woman and the city, and the Doctor's like, no, I can't. The rules of time don't work like that. I can't just change back. I need to be more responsible. And Leela actually starts shouting at the Doctor. It's like, what? You do impossible time traveling things all the time. You change history all the time. And now you want, because of your moral responsibility, we got to save him, Doctor. So it puts a huge dilemma onto Leela and the Doctor. And it's just it gets really bit intense as well. Whilst this is going on, we hear some scenes, recreated scenes of Tomb of the Cybermen, in which Jamie and Peter, they go into one of the rooms where they discover the hypnotizing thing. But Jamie gets interrupted midway through sentence as he hears a bang somewhere, as if something's entered. So already times are changing, and when the Doctor realises that it's the Cybermen's involvement, as the Doctor describes it, Jamie would get some Cybermen particles on him, to which he would take into the TARDIS. The TARDIS then, it would then stay on his clothes for all these years until K9 awoke in the old control room, in which Leela found the bag, the part of clothing of Jamie's. This then put the particles on the Doctor's scarf. When the Doctor went to visit Krelos, that got onto the robot. The robot took it to the people. Because of the way the city is organised, everything technological is connected. There is no one bit in which it's not connected. So when the robot goes back, the Cybermen were easily allowed to manipulate all of the city. And as well, a bit of this got into K9, and this is how K9 got controlled by the Cybermen. So we get a really evil K9 in this story, which I kind of like. And the first thing the Doctor does when realising this is that he goes back to Krelos before the invasion happened, and starts trying to organise something to try and stop them. And so he goes in back to Krelos, back before the whole thing happened, and he talks to the humans only for it all happening again, to all be infected. And so the Doctor kind of leaves, and that takes the majority of the story. And it was really disappointing, because this story was built up as basically the Fourth Doctor and Leela interact with the Tomb of the Cybermen, but hardly anything actually connects them to. This story is mainly set on Krelos, the planet of the fate of Krelos. So the Doctor and Leela, what they do is they go back to Telos, and what the Doctor does is he takes the robot, now free from Cybermen control, or the human control, he puts his consciousness in it, and what he does is he goes to Jamie and shoots him with a sort of clean ray, and what that does is it removes all the Cybermen particles, so that it doesn't infect the TARDIS, K9, or the planet of Krelos. And so The story ends with them recreating a scene in which the Doctor and Leela are getting ready to go fishing, and the Doctor feels like something's wrong as K9 mentions something about the three of the Cybermen, and Leela says something about the Cybermen, and then all of a sudden everybody seems to forget what they were on about, and then the Doctor and Leela go fishing to enjoy the day with the robot. And so that's the return to that's Return to Telos. Overall, it's pretty weak, and will admit it takes a while to get going. It's a bit disappointing that the Cybermen have very little to do, especially that they're my favourite monsters and Leela's my favourite companion, and I don't think they ever actually meet. The scenes with Telos could have been replaced with anything and the story wouldn't change in it. It just seems like that was just a reference to, just making a reference to it. The big problem with Big Finish is that they seem to have a lot of references to classic episodes for seemingly no reason. And as well, the Doctor, another big problem with Big Finish is that they overuse the multi-Doctor format in which you have two Doctors. And this one, I guess, could count as a multi-Doctor story, because despite the Doctors never meeting, the second Doctor does actually appear in this story. So, yeah, it is a big complaint, because Big Finish do it all the time. And it is kind of, it takes away from the surprise a bit. So, yeah, Return to Telos, pretty disappointing. So join me next time where the Doctor, Leela and K9 go to a new world, and I can't really remember much about it to give a description. So join me next time for Underworld. See you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra.